It is 1:35 p.m. on July 10, 1940. With a total of 26 Dornier Do-17 bombers, escorted by Messerschmitt Bf-109 and Messerschmitt Bf-110 single-engine and twin-engine fighters, the Luftwaffe flies over the English Channel to attack the Gulf of Foreland in Great Britain. Suddenly, the German pilots meet a group of English fighter jets between Spitfires and Hurricanes, determined to stop the Nazi air advance. The end result of this first skirmish? 8 planes shot down on the German side, 7 on the British side, plus 4 ships carrying coal near the English coast. Thus, with an aerial confrontation over the water, the so-called Battle of Britain began, remembered as one of the most important air fights in history. A day later, another squadron of the aforementioned German bombers, together with the fearsome Stukas, successfully attacked various English port facilities, sank the gunboat HMS Warrior II and other smaller vessels, and destroyed several radar antennas, rendering the interception system inoperative during more than 24 hours. Hitler's Germany thus began a fierce offensive on Great Britain, relying on its brand new air power and with a thirst for conquest, targeting the only country that could thwart its intention to expand the Third Reich throughout Europe. After having passed over Poland, Norway, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, and France, no one seemed to be able to stop the Nazi colossus, and the forecasts were not at all encouraging for Britain. But what was it that led the powerful Nazi Germany to lose the Battle of Britain? What aircraft were the main protagonists? And finally, what were the keys to the British resistance? If you want to know more about this historical confrontation of the Second World War, stay with us, because in the next few minutes, we'll explore together the most interesting details of the Battle of Britain. Are you ready? Then, prepare to travel back in time. July 16, 1940, Directive Number 16 of Adolf Hitler. As Great Britain shows no signs of reaching a deal despite its discouraging military situation, I have decided to prepare and, if necessary, carry out an amphibious operation against England. The purpose of this operation will be to eliminate the English mother country as a basis for the continuation of the war against Germany, and, if necessary, to occupy the entire island. This way, followed by a long and exhaustive list of instructions, Nazi Germany gave the green light to Operation Sea Lion, in which its air force would be the main protagonist, taking control of the skies. In fact, the Luftwaffe commander, Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, was certain that the small and unprepared English Royal Air Force would fall in just 4 days. Göring's plan was to attack English targets such as radar stations, airfields, and convoys of coastal vessels in order to attract the RAF fighter jets and, consequently, destroy them. At the same time, military factories would be bombed, thus compromising the British recovery time until, eventually, full air supremacy would be won. Once that was accomplished, the next phase of the invasion, the landing across the English Channel, would become much simpler. However, things would not turn out at all as the Nazi officer expected. But before going any further, let's briefly review some of the aircraft that were the protagonists of the conflict. On the German side, we'll mainly talk about their bombers. One of them was the Dornier Do-17, sometimes nicknamed as the Flying Pencil. It was a light twin-engine bomber that could theoretically outrun enemy fighters thanks to its speed. The Dornier Do-17 could carry up to a ton of bombs, and its use was recurrent in the Luftwaffe due to its good low-altitude maneuverability and its small size, which made it more difficult to shoot down. The other protagonist, perhaps more recognized, was the Stuka, or Junkers Ju-87, the famous dive bomber whose siren, the Jericho trumpet, terrorized thousands and thousands of people. However, the Battle of Britain was not its best scenario, since due to its low speed and low load capacity, it was a relatively easy prey for the British fighters. And if we refer to British fighters, we have to mention the Supermarine Spitfire and the Hawker Hurricane, two single-engine and single-seater fighters with respective top speeds of 605 and 512 kilometers per hour. The Hurricane, though overshadowed by its more modern peer, played a pivotal role in the Battle of Britain, serving on all fronts and later the major theaters of World War II. It was equipped with only 8 Browning 303 7.70mm machine guns, the same configuration as the Spitfire initially. Returning to the conflict itself, the clashes between the aforementioned aircraft grew in magnitude and violence until, on August 13th, the Luftwaffe launched a huge offensive against RAF airfields in southern England. This attack was called Adlertag, or Eagle Day. It was a critical day for the English pilots, and perhaps the point at which Germany came closest to claiming victory. The RAF was running out of good fighters, no good airfields, and worse still, no pilots. While ground crews repaired planes and tried to fill in craters left by bombs on the runways, all under fire from an experienced enemy, British pilots were often forced to get off a plane and immediately get on another one to return to combat. There were times when all available RAF aircraft were in the air, and even then, they weren't enough. But what happened? For some reason, and before the fierce, although waning, English resistance, Goring ordered to stop attacking military objectives and start bombing cities such as London, Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, among others. This abandonment of direct attacks on airfields allowed the RAF to slowly recover and, over time, reverse what seemed like a sure defeat. It was thus that, on September 17, 1940, Hitler decided that the invasion was not going to be possible and cancelled Operation Sea Lion. And although the bombardments on English soil continued throughout the war, it can be said that between September and October of that year, the Battle of Britain had concluded. This failure led Nazi Germany to, a year later, turn its attention to the Soviet Union and attempt to invade it, a betrayal that would come at a high cost. At the same time, Great Britain would position itself as the gateway of the mighty USA to European lands. In figures, the Battle of Britain cost the Luftwaffe a total of 1,733 aircraft, against the 915 lost by the RAF. It is also worth mentioning the participation of other nations in the battle, such as Italy, which contributed aircraft and troops to help Germany. Also, Australian, Canadian, New Zealand, South African, French, Czech, and Polish pilots came to the aid and relief of their British counterparts. Coming to the end, we'd like to ask you, do you think that Germany would have been able to carry out the invasion if it had won the Battle of Britain? Leave us your comment below, and don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications to learn about many more military events that left their mark on history. Thanks, and until the next video.